Alrighty, lumberjacks, welcome back to another episode of FDR Logging, because that is who we are. We are FDR and we're logging, so it should be fun. So today's subject is going to be slavery. Just kidding, we're not talking about slavery, although that was a very funny meme for a while there. We're just testing out the algorithm to see if we get our controversial comments banned. So there you go. There was our one ad lib of a comment. Although in this economy, it almost does feel sometimes like slavery. You're working for peanuts and paying in gold. It seems to be the way it seems to be. Anyway, I won't dive into our economic crises anytime soon here. Maybe I don't think that was too controversial of me to talk about last time. But it doesn't really have anything to do with logging, so. And that's a subject that you can beat to death like a dead horse over and over and over, and you don't really get anywhere, so. We'll just leave that one alone, I think, is probably good. Yeah, so I don't really have a subject actually for today. We're just logging away. I'm going to start off by doing some skidding here. My plan is to hopefully drag out some of the road here. So we have kind of a right-of-way road that we've created, and that basically will take us out to the further part of the block. Now, my first initial plan was to keep cutting all the way up to the road, but I think what I might do is I might just stick to this brown section and start building a block out here somewhere. So why don't we just actually hop out and take a look around here. So we got this all built up here in this little brown section. Well, actually, it's not really like a huge section of a... I wonder what our map will tell us here. So we got like pretty much this whole section up to the buncher. So we could stick to this brown section here while we're cutting and just kind of clean it up as we go. That might actually be the better idea. But in that case, we will have to cut up to here somewhere. So you know what we're gonna do? Let's grab these two piles, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna block, kind of do a block edge, where I'm gonna clean up the stuff along the edge of that block. I'm gonna see if I can drag this pile, scoop that one, and I kind of want to hook it into this pile if I can. I don't know if I'm skilled enough to do that as an operator, or as a skidder operator anyway. Skidder operating ain't my grandest skill, but we're gonna try. Alright, let's try that. Alright, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna back up to all of that in one big cluster here and see if I can just scoop all of it in one shot. I don't know if that's gonna work because they're kind of cockeyed here. I think we're asking for a lot, but we'll try. Oh, let's lock that and see what happens. I mean, technically it worked. Not great, but it worked. Let's see if we can pull this out of here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to process all of this material right at the roadside to complete kind of this deck. Oh, Skidder really doesn't like what I did there. So I wouldn't recommend grabbing stuff at 45-degree angles like that. I guess that's a no-no. But you know what? We did it, so that's how that go. So yeah, we're going to clean up this, and then I'm going to bring the processor out, and we're just going to kind of edge split the deck there. And we will walk around the edges, and I'll process them into piles, and then we can always use the loader, or even the skidder if we really wanted to bring that stuff back up. And slide this over here. And that's kind of straight. And then we probably won't need much of the skidder if we're going to do that plan. Let's just go see if there's any other little piles that are kind of in the way that we can clean up. Because I'm sure there's definitely something out here. I try to keep the decks as close as I can to each other while moving around. That just makes life a little bit easier. And we have kind of a slope here, so that might be a bit of an issue too. Let's see here. Because I don't really like process. I mean, you can process onto a slope, but it's not very pretty. It kind of makes a mess. So the best thing I could do is actually skid all this down to this edge where it's flat. So maybe what I'll do is I'll actually walk up this row and we'll lay the wood uphill. So then what we're going to do is we're going to back up and we're just skid it down this hill. And we're going to create a little flat landing down here. That's probably the best move. Even though we have 500 piles out here. This is all flat over here, so I'm not too worried. But maybe now what we're going to do... Maybe I'll hop back in this guy for a little bit here. I kind of want to complete my bunch before we start doing the other stuff if I can. But this is going to be a lot of bunching, so I'm trying to space it out so we're doing different stuff. Not always going to be doing the exact same machine the whole time. Even though in real life, sometimes that's how it goes, man. Sometimes you got to ride the same machine for a long time. I try to keep it as less boring as possible. The hardest is like when I was doing those time lapses, right? You do like 5 minutes in one machine, 5 minutes in the other machine, 5 minutes in the other machine, trying to hop between them all. I think the most boring thing for people to watch without some kind of interest is processing. See, like, I am the dead opposite. Like, not only playing in the game, like, I will sit and watch like a processor operator in real life work trees for hours, and I can just do that. It's like medicine. It's very hypnotizing to watch, and I think it's pretty sweet. But I think to some people that is like the most boring thing on earth, so I get it. Loading videos are definitely the most ADD popular thing for sure for people to watch. Just because in loader videos you're manipulating a lot more of the physics and stuff. We'll put that right about there. So yeah, what I'm gonna do is let's wipe out these trees, and I'm gonna drop down a little bit, and we'll walk up that row that we made on the road part, and we're just gonna lay it all uphill like I'm doing right now. That way we'll be able to pull it all down to sort of a flatter landing. Yeah, and like I said, we already got this kind of nicely cut line here that we made when we came in building the road. And this stuff down here, like I said, it's all laying that way, but it's really not a big deal because I can put all that together. I come in with a loader and just high pile it all in groupings, and then I'll process it over there. Not all the decks have to be the same way. It's not the end of the world. Let's see if we get one more in there just for fun. Oh yeah, we can get one more. We could probably even get more, but let's not push our luck. I don't want to get too ambitious here. Okay. Yeah, when you're cutting downhill, that's kind of always a pain in the butt with bunching, because you leave a little bit higher stumps and stuff, or you have the potential to leave higher stumps. Maybe I'll just throw these in this pile, actually. Make these skidder piles worth pulling. I've also had a few people asking when I'm bunching, how do I know where to dump the logs? So let's go here. So for instance, if I cut, let's say we'll cut all this too, just for fun. So we'll dump this, even though we don't really need to dump that yet. We'll dump it anyway. So I'm going to dump this right here. So people say, how do I know where my alignment is on my dump? Like when I go to dump another tree into that pile, so like if I grab this tree, how do I know, how do I line up where that drop is? And for me, honestly, it's just, I've done it so many times in this game that I kind of know. But if you're new, you can always like go to third person, kind of look at where you're dumping, because you want to dump kind of like about there so that your edge is lined up with your pile. So I just know from doing it a million times, and sometimes I miss too. I don't line it up perfectly, and then I push it up. So for instance, if you're new and you're starting off and you're missing really bad, because some people either dump way too far into the pile, like high up into there, or they dump way too far out. It doesn't butt up the edges. So as a new person practicing, especially in this game where you have no depth perception, it's always better to do closer to you than it is to do further, because if you dump it really far, it's going to be really hard to claw that log back. So what'll happen, like, so instance, if I dump it over here and I'm like, oh crap, that's not where I wanted it. Well, now that log is way off. So when the skidder comes to pick it up, it's going to be a pain in the ass for the skidder to try to get that. So I have my saw on right now. So what I'll do is if I need to manipulate this pile, I'll turn that saw off. I just have it on a quick button. But if you hit B as in Bravo, it'll make that saw stop. So then that saw's not going. So you can either sit here and try to claw and try to grab that tree. It's going to be a pain in the butt because there's all those other ones around it. Or what you can do is step off to the side, use your head, and just kind of feed it into that pile. Let's go like that. Actually, it would probably be better if we do it from the front. We're not exactly on a straight edge here. So use it almost like a scoop. Put your blade down. Again, make sure your blade is off or you'll start chopping the trees. And close both sets of claws. Make sure that these are closed. Chunk, chunk. Then use your blade, because it has like a tip on it there, to just slide these logs back until they're cinched up with that one. Like this. Right? Easy peasy. So now they're all lined up in a nice row. Makes it way easier for doing grabs. And then same difference, if you grab a tree, let's grab this one. And this is why I say it's better you dump it closer to you by accident than further into the pile, because that's a lot more work doing what we just did. But if you dump it and you're like, oops, it's too close. Well, now it's sticking out way too far this way and it needs to go backwards. Well, getting that backwards, again, I turn the saw off, I close my blade, and I do the same thing, but now you're only pushing one log up, so it's really not as big of a deal. And you try to keep them as close together as possible so you can squeeze them together like that. And then after time, you just start to, I don't know, you get a feel for where they're going to drop. And it takes time. Like, it's experience, right? It's like anything. And like I said, sometimes mine land perfectly and sometimes they're right out to lunch. So that's pretty close to where I want it. So, yeah, just a little buncher tip for you guys, because that's, I know I get that one a lot. Where people are like, I can never line them up. My bunches are always in and out, and there's pieces sticking out of the front and one's further up, and just work on doing that. And then after you cinch up your piles enough time, like where you have to correct them, you'll just get used to dumping them. And like I said, we got a good grab there. We got 4 logs. Super duper good grabs. So let's grab a couple more here. And we're this far up the pile, I'm not going to go back to that one. It's only 4 in a pile, so it's not super great. I prefer to get a little more in there, but... And I'm going to dump this where I'm not going to cross-thread them onto the other piles. And it's okay if your saw hits the logs like that and grinds them up, because it does have a really high range for cutting. So, like, if you're dumping these on the ground, I try to keep it as close to me as possible. So when you're dumping, it's about there. But as you can see, when I get too close, like, there's that invisible saw. Even though my saw is not really touching the logs, it still hits them. That's just the super fun joys of the cut nodes in this game, unfortunately. Unfortunately, it's not a perfect system. That's just the way she goes. And we're just going to follow this line here as I go. There we go. Follow this line down the hill. We're doing kind of a vertical cut here. And we got lots of room to lay logs, so we're going to put them in here. This is also kind of the purpose of this series for FDR Logging, is I can provide you guys with a little bit of commentary about what I'm doing while I'm doing it, and I know that's really beneficial to lots of new people playing the game. But yeah, it's just little stuff like that you remember. The other cool thing when you're bunching, I guess this is just going to be a buncher tips episode, because that's what we're going to call it. Buncher tips. Same with the grapples. I've given this tip, but so if I'm dumping these, I mean, we don't really have a great area for this. If you don't have an open area to dump these trees, for instance, so pretend there's a bunch of trees over here. We're going to do that. Now, the really hard part in dumping, actually, maybe we'll just dump them. I don't really want to lay them over there because it might be a bitch to pick them up. Just give me a sec here. I'm going to give you a better example, because the example I had isn't super great. So we'll just grab one tree and we'll use it as an example tree. Congratulations. You are actually, we'll use this little guy here. So this little example tree here, we're going to use. Now, if you have a full grab with a bunch of trees in there, and you're laying wood in an area where there's other trees, unlike real life, these trees are solid through and through like cement. So occasionally what will happen is you'll hit a tree. As you can see, my whole machine's turning. This is extremely unrealistic because that tree would snap far before my my tracks would ever turn, right? So one thing that I do is if I'm dumping into an area that has lots of trees mixed in it, and I feel my machine going up in the air, or I'm hitting a point where I'm starting to turn, what I'll do is I'll actually back off on my claws a bit. So slightly open your claw just a little bit, both claws. It'll actually give you more wiggle room between the two sets of trees in there. And what'll happen is the physics will kind of start to slide the trees into place where they'll lock in between other trees. But if you have them at full grab, like your claws are completely tight, as you're pushing down, you got no wiggle room. Like your tree is going to be solid stuck in there. So if you ever have that problem where you're constantly lifting yourself up, or you're like, I can't get these trees to go down because I'm hitting something, try opening your claws just a little bit, and you have all this extra room to play. And the physics will just kind of sort themselves out while they're going. And again, that takes a little bit of time and experience, just playing with the physics themselves. See, there you go. That's a good example because I dropped it too close, so I'll give it a butt. It's the same with grapples. Like when you're loading a trailer with short logs, if you're trying to get them to settle into the bunk, just open your grapple a little bit, not so they're falling out of the grapple, but so there's a little bit of space in the grapple. And what'll happen is the logs, you can shake the grapple around, and the logs will kind of almost settle themselves into the little holes and the little physics points. And it's just like that in real life. It's really no different. That way you're not trying to force this solid brick of a pile of stuff into a spot. You can actually let it kind of like, see, like, again, even when I go to drop, so I'm going to drop these trees, instead of like slamming them into the ground, what I'll do is as I'm coming in to do a dump, so I'm going in, before they even start to hit the ground, I start opening my grapple just slightly. And what'll happen is those trees will lay down nicely on the ground. Then when you're putting pressure on them, you just let go and they fall nicely. But if you don't, let's use one tree. So if I don't, and I'm pushing down, so if I'm pushing this tree down and I have my grapple completely tight, see how my machine wants to lift itself off the ground until I let go and it'll shoot the tree down, right? So it's best to open the grapple a little bit when you're going to do a dump, when you're going to do, like you're loading a truck, anything. And I'm not saying like a huge opening, just enough to get a little bit of settle room. So again, we'll do this again. I'm going in to dump it right here. Right now I start opening the claw, just lightly, not like crazy, but enough so I get a little bit of spring, and then when I open it, it'll drop right down into where I want it. It creates that little bit of a like I said, a spring effect where it's like wants to pop down into there. Very handy way to do stuff. And again, that's something in real life. Well, I've never bunched heavily in real life, so I don't know if that actually, in real life you probably just dump them and nobody cares, but in this game it's best to have a little bit of a technique to it. So again, as you're going in, you start opening, dump, and then they land right pretty much where you want them. It's pretty neat. So this is like, again, small techniques and stuff that are just good to have in your tool bag. I don't know how far I want to go because we kind of got a road here already, so I'll take out this corner tree here and we'll call that good. Yeah, then we have a little open space there too. And I'm going to add this to this pile. And then we're going to walk back up the road and do the same thing until the game crashes because we have too many trees down. There we go. Okay, so maybe what we'll do now, just so we're staying on this row, I'm going to go down below, and I'm just going to... Actually, maybe I won't. My plans change per the second. I was going to do something, but I don't think it's going to make a difference here, so... Okay. Let's go down. I think on the next row down, we'll start cutting like a small area to skid all this stuff too. And then we'll just build a giant road. It's It's kind of an oblong shape. We're not in a nice perfect square by any means here, so by the time I'm done, it's going to be a nice perfect square, but we're not there yet. And I trek ahead and I just look for holes in the timber, right? I think I explained this in the Buncher advanced training video, but so here's a nice hole right here. So this is where I'll dump my next skid right here. Dook. That way the treetops aren't generally touching the other pile. Same for if you're working with the bigger stuff. Actually, sometimes when you're working with the really big logs, like the much bigger stuff, it will touch that other pile if you drop it this close because the trees will be longer. But for the most part, that looks pretty good. This can be butted up a bit better. Did those go anywhere? Didn't look like it. There we go. Close enough. Skitter's problem now. Oh wait, we're the skitter. Dang it. Okay. And like I said, I try to stay within my operating range. And what I mean by that is, like, I don't try to reach out for trees that are so far beyond my reach. I try to stay within a good, smaller type range. And look how your other trees are lined up. Try to keep them at least slightly facing the same direction. It doesn't really matter if they, like... so let's zoom out here. So if we zoom out really high, you can see. So these ones will all come down this direction. I'm going to build a deck right here because they're kind of all laying in this direction, so that's easy. And then we kind of twist it a bit to go up this way. Now these ones are all going to go lay down here because we'll build another deck down there. But they should all kind of be facing in the direction you want them to go. That just makes life a little bit easier. And again, you can see I'm leaving a bit of a space between them. As you can see, these ones are kind of touching this pile, but it's okay if the tops are touching, as long as you're dragging these straight off the landing. It'll be fine. Real life's obviously very different than this game. In real life, you could drag them over those and it's not going to cause an issue. In this game, unfortunately, because these are made out of cement, basically, if I go grab that and turn hard right or hard left, those tops will tangle in that deck and they'll move all those logs out of the way. So that's why I try to keep kind of a feathered line between all the piles as much as I can. And it just makes life a little bit easier. So, and again, talking about our physics, right? Everyone might ask, how can I have this many trees down without the game basically having low frame rate or crashing? But again, the spacing on my decks, so there's a space between this bunch, there's a space between this bunch, a big gap there. These ones are probably a little close, but chances are these aren't going to all become live at the same time with the physics, as I explained in that one episode before there. So yeah, it's a good way to keep everything separated. And then when you do build your decks, when you start skidding this stuff up, build your decks so you do maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these in one deck. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, build another deck, but keep them so there's a good distance between each deck. Because if you try to bring all of these trees into one pile, you're going to have frame rate issues up the yin-yang. So you need to make sure that you build separate decks, as we're going to do and as you're going to see here. So let's keep rolling. I want to add this one to this pile because we got a whole bunch of trees coming up here. Perfect. Yeah, and it's the annoying part. Like, I wish we could have unlimited physics and just like real life, you know, where you could go bunch an entire map and then go in and process 6,000 loads into one pile. Because in real life, you could do that because there is no restraint on reality of physics, right? So that would be really sweet. But unfortunately, we are restrained by the confines of the video game, and we do have to play within those set restrictions. So becoming a good operator in this game, as opposed to real life, you have to realize the consistencies of things such as physics, frame rates, that kind of stuff. So if you're finding your computer's bogging down and you have 8,000 logs in one pile, well, there's probably a good reason for that. We're gonna throw these in here too. I'm trying to scoop that back a little bit. I try to keep these bunches as tight as possible because that skitter grapple's big, but not unlimited big, as in we can nail every little bit there. So okay, so now we've hit this other point of our slope. where you'll see kind of, now we're going the other way. So now these logs are kind of pointing all in that direction. Now this is kind of the split where I went the other way. So now that one middle point's kind of there. So now we'll want to start a new deck, and the trees will be kind of facing like here. As you can see, those go kind of out of 45 that way, and then these will go out of 45 this way. And it's not like essential. You can lay them all straight because the skidder has a lot of swing room, and because we're dragging them at such a distance, we have lots of room to turn them. So it's not like a huge issue. But if we can keep them all facing in the general same sort of direction, then life is good, and we'll do that as much as we can. So again, like I was saying, before I went into that other rant there, my swing range. So my swing range is, if there's a tree here, I'll take it. If there's a tree here, I'll take it. If there's a tree here, I'll take it. But if there's anything beyond kind of this line, like where you're really reaching for stuff, unless it's a really tiny tree and it's the end of a block or something, you're just wasting your time stretching out that far to grab it. And since we're going to be walking up that line again in just a second, like, who cares? Just leave it. But if it's right next to me, I'll absolutely grab it. Beauty. So this would be my swing range, would be right in here. My working range. I don't know what you actually call it. Probably your working range. There we go. And we'll lay this one like right here. So we're kind of like this one. See, it's kind of out of the swing range, but we're right, because it's the last one on the line, I would reach out and just grab that just to get it. There is no rhyme or reason. You can do whatever you want. If you're talking about production, like you want to move, then you don't really reach outside your swing range too much, because you just want to grab, go. Grab, go. Over and over. And do as little as possible in terms of the wasted swings and reaches. There we go. Okay. So now we're kind of on our last row. I'm going to make it my last row regardless. And I think what we're going to do is we will swing it this way. There we go. So we'll grab this one. And we kind of got a little V in the middle there, so I think I'll start a row right there. And like I said, I want this to be my last row that I do, because I might have to do a little bit of long range grabbing here, but so again, I try to place it in between the little space between that pile and that pile. So you see this little V that's carved in from where we laid the wood. And that's kind of what you're doing, is you're just creating these long lines of V's and keeping the piles from slamming into each other. Again, not all terrain is going to give you the ability to do that. Sometimes you're going to be in a really crappy spot, cutting on a hill with giant rocks or weird angles or a slope or a creek or something, and then it's makes your life a little bit trickier. But we have this huge open area that is just this beautiful landscape, so really no concerns about how we're going to bunch. Like I said, we have a little bit of a slope and a hill, but that's really not a big deal. It's not too bad at all. And I think what I'm going to do, maybe what I'll start doing is actually, let's find out where are we flat here. So we still have kind of an angle coming down. It doesn't really flatten out until you get way down here. But I think this is enough of an angle where I can actually just process it. So what I might start doing with these trees, because we're so close, is I'll start laying them in a line right here. Not in bunches, but in just an actual deck. And what we're going to do is actually build the deck with the buncher, and we'll process it as is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a deck line right about... Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the stump removal cheat here, because that makes our lives easier. In real life, the stumps don't really affect you too bad, but in this game, they can cause some nightmares to your piles. So let's start a line right here. And this is going to be our deck line. And what that is I'm going to walk along, and I'm just going to fire everything on that line as I go. And then what we'll do with the skidder or with the loader afterwards is we'll just add to that line as we go. So let's, again, I'm not trying to make nice bunches. I'm just trying to make a line. So you don't have to try to make nice pullable, skiddable bunches. We're just going to actually create a line in the sand here. And like I said, what this line is going to be is our actual line that our processor is going to be working on. This is our first deck. So you have all those little bunches, and then these are the decks of wood, the actual piles that we build for the processor, which will be the next step here. And this video might go a few minutes longer than the normal ones because I do want to finish this row here. So I'm going to go over here, we'll scoop this, and I'm going to scoop this big guy here, and his little friends. Let's see how many we can get in here. Oh, she's getting a little hefty on the other end there. Alright, we better put that one down. You can feel the weight on that one. So as straight as you can keep the line. Doesn't have to be perfect because you're processing anyhow, so as long as they're kind of within a nice range of each other, then you're golden. I'm going to smoke out this tree over here just because it's irritating me. My OCD won't allow this. My OCD does not allow this. And then what I'll probably do is use the painting tool real quick before we go, just to finish off the actual decked part of our operation. So again, that's kind of our deck starting point right here. And we don't want to put too many trees in there because I don't want to hurt the frame rate too bad. But we can definitely knock down and drag up a few there. I'm going to try to get this third one in here. Oh, she's a hefty girl. All right. And then we're going to throw this. Oh, yeah. If you get any tree shake like that, you guys see that? See how the tree's starting to like hop a little bit in there? Just open your claw like a teeny bit and it'll straighten it out. It's just sometimes the trees are too big and the physics are squeezing too hard and it hops around a little bit. So if you ever get that, just do that. And I'm just going to clean up a couple more off this edge just to give us a little bit more of an open feeling. So we'll cut that one, and maybe this one, and then one more on this edge just to open up this line, give us a little bit more sunlight. And we'll throw that in the deck, and this will be our first deck that we start. Let's throw that in there, and I'm going to turn the head of my buncher off because we're done with that. Okay, cool. So now we got all these pieces. This buncher, I'm just going to go park it on the moon here or something because we're done with it. Actually, maybe what we'll do is I'll just teleport the buncher because we're done with this block now. I'm going to teleport this buncher to a new block that we're going to work on, and maybe that'll be this one. That'll be our next area that we hit. Okay, so we got this little road. We got a little bit of processing to do, which we'll have a little bit. We got a lot more than a little bit. So here, we're going to drag all of this here. We'll just process it right from that deck. That's fine. This one's going to be a little bit trickier. I'm not really sure where I'm going to bring all that. Maybe I should have bunched this out and made a little area here. That's okay. We'll figure that out when we get to that point. We might have to bring the buncher back and zip this out. We'll see. Perfect. So like I said, we got, I'm going to zoom up here. We got all these trees down. We laid all these nice little bunches here. And it's going to be fun when we come back and start processing. So like I said, here's our first deck that we did. So the plan now is to bring, I'm going to bring that all to one. And then you process it, make a pile. Then you start a new deck, a new deck, a new deck. Because again, bringing all this wood into one pile is going to create some frame rate nightmares for us. It's going to be exciting, but we're going to push the limits and see what we can do. All right, guys, I'm going to leave it at that. But we will catch you in the next one. See ya.